Having been in the Olympics, I do like to move my own props now. So, the Hoja Nasruddin. Who knows the Hoja Nasruddin? Yes. The Hoja Nasruddin, he was invited to give a talk, a TED talk, no less. And everyone was gathered, nervously anticipating great words from this man. He stepped up onto the stage and he said, "Tell me, do you know what it is that I've come to talk to you about today?" And the audience sort of looked slightly nervously amongst themselves. And as one voice said, "No!" And he said, "Well, then there is no point in me staying here at all if you don't know what we're going to talk about." And he left the stage. The organisers, Jane, slightly worried there, rallied round, brought him back in. He came back to the stage a second time. Audience had time to confer. "Do you know what it is that I have come to talk to you about today?" "Yes," they all said. "Well, then there's clearly no need for me to waste any time talking to you about it." And he left the stage. He was brought back, eventually persuaded to come back, and the third time he said, "Do you know what it is that I've come to talk to you about today?" Now, audience had had time to have a bit of an exchange. Half of them said, "Yes," and the other half said, "No." And the Hoja Nasruddin said, "Good. Well, if that half that does know can tell the other half that doesn't know, that would be great, and there's no need for me to stay. Goodbye." Which is what I'd like to talk to you about. And maybe I don't need to stay. It's been so stimulating so far. I'm a little bit overexcited. In fact, I'm terribly overexcited. It's masses to take in. I'm so thrilled. I tell stories. It's wonderful to hear stories. I love listening to stories. People tell stories. We tell stories all the time. People tell stories, have conversations, make connections, create community. I'm going at it from that way. And it's those communities that we then need to share the stories back with, because we're not just part of one community, we're part of many communities. We're part of our community at work, at home, in our families, school, church maybe, clubs, all sorts of communities. And it's important that the stories are shared across those communities, because we learn so much more. And we take the excitement from one and what we've learned from there to another and pass it on. You might be wondering why I'm wearing this, although Francesca did tip you off. This is my latest community. Not a boiler suit community. I mean, this is my latest community. This summer, 999 others. In fact, where's Alex? Yes, thank you very much. We're part of a community. I didn't know. I didn't realize Alex, who's speaking later, was also in the opening ceremony. And immediately, we were able to have a conversation about all sorts of things, because we had that shared experience. Dressed in these boiler suits with our numbers. I was quite happy to be a number for once. We stood out in the pouring rain, and it mostly did rain, occasionally blistering sunshine. Do you remember much sunshine? No. Rain every weekend for 3 months. And we went through our moves. I threatened to get him up to do that for the opening ceremony. Why on earth did all these people come back every week in such appalling conditions? We were in a car park in Dagenham, East London. You know, we were given this to protect ourselves. We were fed, Nature Valley bars. This is not an advert, believe me. Anyone want any? I have a stash. And also, very, very importantly, rain ponchos. You had to have your rain ponchos. This is Britain. But the most extraordinary thing was these people came back week after week and rehearsed week after week, and we stood in the rain. And why? Because everybody wanted to be part of something bigger. It wasn't about being glory. We were numbers. It was just actually about sharing something that we would never before and never again have the opportunity to be part of. And it was something bigger than us. And it was fascinating because there were people from all over the world, every corner of the world. In my group alone, we had people from Egypt, China, Japan, Germany, Australia. I mean, it was the most astounding group of people, again with professions from ear, nose and throat surgeon, housewife, IT specialist, banker, antiquarian bookseller. It was just phenomenal. So you can see I'm still a bit overstimulated by it all. And they came back, and I think they came back because we came back as a community, as stories. We were sharing something. We were sharing this drudgery of lugging great big rolls of sodden turf on our shoulders. And as we did, if it was too heavy, someone else could see, and they came in and they joined in. They helped you. It became a caring community. We had shared experience. We had a shared language. And it also, this caring developed, and that's what interested me. And I asked people, because I am nosy, and I did know everybody else's name in my group very quickly, which everyone did say, how did you know that? I said, because I like to know people's names. And we had a solid 39 people in our group. We never knew what happened to 108. 108 only came to one rehearsal, never came back. So if you're out there, 108, we missed you. But we didn't lose a single person from our group. We were so proud. Cornwall rocks. We were a group that cleared and ripped up the green and pleasant land as the chimney shot up round us. It was fantastic. Actually, it was filthy and incredibly hard work with lots of bruises and cuts and everything. But I asked people, I said, why are you here? Why did you get involved? What's it about? And people said, well, I don't know, it just seemed like fun. It was going to be a good thing to do, something bigger than myself. And, oh, well, my parents, my grandparents were from here. This is Brad, who's from the US. And I really wanted to walk in their footsteps. And I've asked them since, and I said, what did you get out of it? And people said, so much more. You could not have predicted it. This community, this caring community. Lasting friendships have definitely been formed. Absolutely. And there was, I think Louisa very beautifully put it, and she said, and now I can't stop, because once you start giving, you get so much back. You feel you've got to keep giving some more. So people are giving into that community and being involved in so many different ways. And the lovely thing is, it hasn't stopped there. It didn't stop with the ceremonies. It's only just the beginning. That community now, via Facebook, the amount of social groups that are out there are incredible, but people are putting shout-outs and saying, right, okay, we've got a community celebration in Hackney. Can anyone come along and join in? Suddenly they have this group of people, shared language, shared experience. They can turn up, they can do their thing, whether it's drumming, whether it's the choreography. They can provide a crowd. For very small things, someone wanted some people to go into a care home. Just 3 or 4 people, and immediately she's got a whole community to talk to. It's been very revealing. And what did I get out of it? Well, I found it very liberating. I thought I needed to get a fresh bit of inspiration. Been in Milton Keynes a long time. Do work elsewhere. It's good though. It's good to get out. So I actually, you were worried for a moment. I was thoroughly inspired by meeting these people. And I cannot believe the thrill of just being with those new people and them sharing their stories, having conversations, creating communities. And I love the fact I got this costume for the Paralympics. Not the sparkly, but this. It's got words on it. These are actually words from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we had printed on us. And someone said, oh, when are you ever going to use that? But my point to you is, it is so crucial that we keep sharing those stories. We keep learning, we keep reaching out, because we are in this great cultural web of life. You don't have to go a million miles away. You might do. Fabulous to go to the Yemen. What stories? But actually, it's also here. It's right on your doorstep. What you've got to do is have the courage to get off your seat, open the door, walk out and talk to someone that you wouldn't normally consider a member of your community, that you hadn't thought about that. We've got invitations here to do so. And I hope there'll be many more invitations across people here. But you need to do that. Take that step and share your stories and bring them back, because those conversations make new connections, make new, richer, positive communities. I think we've had. I mean, that wonderful choir, I don't know if anyone, I wanted to cry, and I was aware I had to get up and speak, so I couldn't, but it was just the most beautiful thing. And there was something about what we did at the Olympics. We were just numbers. People said, I didn't see you. You wouldn't have seen me. All smeared over my face and dragging stuff. But it was amazing. And Alex, who's speaking later, was also in it. And an extraordinary feeling as you stood back and looked at the Olympic rings rising over you. God, that power of that. But also knowing that you were sharing it with all these other people. It was so powerful. I'd just like to finish with a story. There was a woman, and she had a story. But she had no one to share it with. Nobody seemed to have enough time to listen to her story. Not even her husband. He was always dashing in and dashing out. And so that story, it grew and grew and grew, and eventually the story became a coat. And she hung the coat up on the back of the door. And one night when her husband came home, he saw the coat on the back of the door and he said, "You've been entertaining a man, what's been going on here?" And he stormed off and he left her, fuming. And the poor woman, she sat and she wept. Now the man, he roamed the streets and he walked all night worrying about this. What had happened? How had their relationship fallen apart? What was happening at home? Until he saw a little glow in the distance, right on the outskirts of the city. And that's where the flames from all the fires gathered, when they were put out in the fires, in the hearths. And the man stood by and he listened, because all those little flames were sharing stories. They were sharing the stories of their households. And he was hearing about all sorts of things that were happening in the city around him that he had no idea about. And then, eventually, just as dawn was beginning to rise, a little flame came and joined them and told its story and said how its mistress had a beautiful story to share and to tell, and she hadn't been able to tell it, and it had become a coat. And when the husband had come back, he'd accused her, and he walked out, and she'd sat there all night crying her eyes out. And the man recognised this was his household that was being talked about. And he went straight back and he saw his wife and he said, "Tell me your story." And he sat down and he heard the story, and she just overflowed with joy. And the story was wonderful. And her husband said, "Go out and tell that story, and I'm going to tell stories, and let's invite people in and share stories." And that's what I want to ask you to do. Invite people in. Tell your stories. Share other people's stories out there. Create those communities, because remember, those conversations make connections, make communities. 3 apples fell from the sky. 1 from the teller, 1 for the listener, and 1 for the person who took it to heart. As a discovery, that is. Thank you.